Hi, YouTube. My name is Chris Tipton-King. I'm director of a new web series called The PrEP Project.
I'm Evan J. Peterson, author of The PrEP Diaries.
Just a note to viewers, this conversation will be sexually explicit.
Oh, yeah.
Evan and I both have projects that are coming out in May about PrEP, and we thought it would be fun to have a conversation between each other about our experiences and our projects and what we're hoping to do and all of that. Evan, I have to say, so I read the book yesterday. I read it in two 4-hour sittings.
Ooh, thank you.
It was a page turner.
That's my drag name, by the way, Page Turner.
Page turner.
Yeah, one of my
Awesome.
107 drag names.
It made me remember a lot of my own. I think everyone has that experience of having those awkward first sexual encounters.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that I kind of like about the gay community and why we are such a close-knit community is you can walk up to any gay person and have a shared history of having a coming out experience and having a first awkward dating experience that you can talk about.
Yeah, straight people don't ask on the first date, do your parents know? Are you out to your family? This is not something that straight people usually ask each other, unless they're super kinky, I guess. Well, first exposure to learning about HIV, I remember learning in school. HIV awareness was part of sex ed starting as early as 4th grade. And this is in Miami, where 4th graders sometimes get pregnant, I guess. So that's the first time I remember actually being taught about it. And then when I came out, I started meeting people who were HIV positive. I started having HIV positive friends, mentors, etc.
My personal experience with it is, I don't remember my parents ever talking about it, but as a kid, we watched the PBS special, Thank God for Public Television.
Yeah.
I remember very specifically, it was a shot of kids lined up to go down a slide. And as each kid would go down the slide, they'd land at the bottom and ask an HIV question. And, I don't know whether my parents intended to show me that or not, but because Miami has been an epicenter of the epidemic for a while, right?
Oh, yeah. Because in the earliest days of HIV, before they named it and figured out what it was, before they even called it AIDS, they called it the 4H virus, and the H's stood for homosexuals, heroin users, hemophiliacs, and Haitians. So and so as a hub of a lot of Haitian immigration, definitely Miami was an epicenter for discussion about it.
For me, it was something that always felt very distant, something that happened to other people. I remember the first time that I remember knowing someone who was HIV positive. I heard through a mutual friend that I was carpooling with that someone that I had recently had a crush on and recently hooked up with had just tested positive. And I remember the weight of that realization and feeling that proximity of being so viscerally close to it. It was such a shock. And then fast forward, and I dated someone who disclosed their status to me, and I had another whole process of coming to terms with it and doing all my homework. You talk in the book about your first experience having sex without a condom. What was the thinking that led up to? Because that was a very conscious decision. It wasn't a spur of the moment. Oh, I'm just gonna, I'm having a hookup and I'm feeling it and I'm just gonna stick it in. There was a whole process for you of coming to that decision and making an intention around it. Could you talk a little bit about how you decided that was what you wanted to do?
Part of how intentional that all was has to do with my partner that I chose to do it with. I wanted it to be with someone that I was both very attracted to and someone that I trusted. So I was already 32. I was I'm old enough to have condomless sex. The person that I picked was a big part of it, as well as being on PrEP, as well as, being in my early 30s and thinking, come on already, let's get this party going. So I think a lot of people assume that it's PrEP or condoms, and many of us are no, PrEP and condoms for me. And so there is an either or there, but I like both and. That's just kind of how I am.
Do you feel like you might be missing out on something by using condoms every time?
Yes, but what I discovered was that for me, it's very much about the psychology of it, and that it doesn't feel that different, condom or no condom. But I also am a top, so I know that condoms can be very irritating for bottoms. You know, tops may sacrifice a little bit of sensitivity, but the latex against the skin of the anus can be very irritating to the bottom.
For me, I mean, it's both a psychological thing in that, to me, it feels like it gets in the way of intimacy.
Mm.
But then also there's the, especially if I'm bottoming, there's the like, that rubber on rubber where it goes, where it like slips in little chunks.
Yeah.
I always feel like I feel that.
No, so no wonder people don't like using condoms, right? This whole, condoms or death idea that we've had for the last 30 years, this has only reduced HIV infections. It has not stopped HIV infections, clearly. And that's what I love about PrEP, is that I take my pill every day and I don't have to worry about these things.
Yeah, well, I should mention that I'm absolutely not against condoms. And somebody, if a partner wants me to use condoms, I don't like put up a big fuss about it, like, oh my God, you want to use a condom?
Well, and I know people who do. Like,
yeah.
I know people for whom that's a deal breaker. And I think that's happening more often in the PrEP conversation. But I want to hear more about your journey with this video. What inspired you to make this video, or this whole series of the PrEP project?
One of the criticisms that was leveled against PrEP is that it's going to usher in this new era of promiscuity, and people who were using condoms are all going to stop. And that might be the case. That might be true in some cases. But it's just speaking from my own experience. I got to be honest, I was not using condoms all the time. I was doing a lot of what I thought were smart things to reduce my risk exposure. So I was trying serosorting and seropositioning, and having conversations about testing, and then getting tested myself really frequently, and being outspoken about it. And there were a couple things that I felt like, okay, well, the community is really just not telling people about HIV. Like, one, like how prevalent it is. In San Francisco, it's almost 1 in 3 guys is HIV positive. Which if you just stop someone on the street in Castro and tell them that, I think they'd be floored. This whole problem of we're ashamed to talk about it, and so no one knows the prevalence rate, and so no one knows what the risk level is. Even now, just one of the statistics that really motivates me is that less than 17% of guys use condoms consistently. And when I first looked that number up, it was estimated at like 40% in like 2008, I think. And even the 40% was a shocking number to me, because being in the gay community and being exposed to every form of outreach and advertising and condoms and bars and clubs and all that stuff, you think that everyone uses a condom every single time. And to know that not everyone was doing it, and that what I was doing in like not being completely consistent either, I wasn't alone in, that was really eye-opening. I'm like, okay, well, obviously there have to be other solutions on the table. The other statistic that motivates me is that PrEP's been out since 2012, right? And still, the last time we counted, and this is 2015, only 12% of the people who meet those CDC guidelines for who should be on PrEP are actually on it. So there's this huge disconnect between the number of people who know about it and the number of people who are on it. And it's a huge, I think, cultural problem that we have to solve, of how do we get people, and this is going to sound slightly condescending, but make rational decisions about their healthcare that are not weighed down with the emotional baggage that we bring to it. And you talk about this in your book. You have a whole chapter dedicated to unpacking the shame of gay sex.
Yeah, the chapter title is Unpacking the Fudge.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
And so one of my big goals is to unpack the fudge.
I'm so delighted to see that reaction on your face, Chris. Yeah, when I came up with that,
turn that into a Twitter hashtag.
Yeah. Oh my God, the Unpack the Fudge campaign. God.
Yeah, so that is one of my big goals, is to help along the culture of sex positivity and the culture of feeling like we can talk about it, and feeling like you can go to your doctor and have these discussions without feeling ashamed of it.
Yeah. Shame is an unnecessary emotion. When I see other people who are into progressive causes using shame at each other or using shame at people who don't agree or get the progressive cause, I think it's really useless.
Yeah, that's
So,
one of my big goals with my project is to try to encourage a culture where that's sex positive and where shame doesn't play a role
mhm.
in HIV education. Because there have been, as recently as 2011, the New York City Public Agency ran a series of broadcast ads called "It's Never Just HIV" that featured graphic depictions of HIV side effects, including like photorealistic diseased anuses. I'm talking
Yeah,
about anal cancer. But there are so many unintended consequences for guys living with HIV, and the net effect of not talking about HIV is that uh, we're unable as a community to address it.
what I'm trying to do is to get people to reduce their shame and embarrassment. Um, this is why I'm so honest and so forthright and detailed in the book, because I made the decision to write a sex positive book because I think that it's only through sex positivity that we're actually going to end HIV. If we continue to treat it like it's this terrible thing, and if you get it, it's your own fault, and if you transmit it to someone else, then you're a terrible person. Like, if we continue to treat it like that, it's going to stay in the closet. And in the closet is where things, they don't go there to die, they go there to quietly fester, and then I don't want a world in which any of our sexuality is in the closet, when we could be having healthy lives and talking about these things and helping each other.
One of the things that struck me about your book and about your evolving attitudes towards sex is when you hear like sex positive, you usually think of um, people like myself who are self-avowed sluts, And
Yeah.
I think there's a really interesting tension in your book between being someone who is a sexual being and is very positive about and self-affirming about your attitudes towards sex, but at the same time, you're someone who is so invested in the emotional side. Which is not to say that I don't have an investment in the emotional side, but for me, it's something I turn on and off. Whereas it sounds like for you, that's something that's always on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of guys out there like me. I mean, when I was writing the book, I thought, gosh, I hope I'm not a statistical outlier telling the story, the world's first PrEP book. But no, I found a lot of guys feel very similarly to me. A lot of guys are like, oh my God, I used condoms for oral sex when I was a kiddo too. When you're young and coming out and you don't know what to do to protect yourself most effectively. So that's been really good. And just to see how many people prefer other kinds of sex to anal sex. Yeah, and there's been such an investment in exploring kink, especially in the gay community because of AIDS. If what really gets you off is being tied up or spankings or foot worship or whatever you're into that really makes you come, like a lot of those things don't involve any risk at all of transmitting an STI. Um,
There's this great page somebody created that's on the PrEP Project Facebook page that you can. It's like there's 10 different qualifiers, and they're all like drawn out that each describe some different aspect of penis. And you can make a selection of all of these like 10 categories, and it generates a unique link, and then you can send that link to your like potential grinder hookups, and they can get a sense of what your dick is like without you having to send pictures of it. Like cut or uncut, like veiny or not veiny, is it like thick or is it tall, or is it one of the big shifts for me in my attitudes towards sex was moving to San Francisco.
mm,
And my problem was that I was a very sexual person who was ashamed to be sexual, because I
mm,
thought that having multiple sexual partners or having a open attitude towards sex was going to like get you a reputation, and people wouldn't like you, and people wouldn't
mhm.
want to have emotional connections with you. What I love about San Francisco, and you can tell me if there's a similar, you had a similar experience like coming to Seattle from Florida, is that there's this attitude of there's a big diversity of sexual expression. There's so many different kinds of kinks. There's so many like ways that people use sexuality in their lives. Like you, who's a serial monogamist, and me, who's a big slut.
Well, I'm both. I'm pretty fucking slutty in between relationships. I'll put that out there.
Where I hope that gay culture goes is more towards this attitude of like, oh, you have a different mode of sexual expression than me. That's great. When we encounter people who are not like us and we go, ew. Like if I were to encapsulate what frustrates me the most about gay culture is ew. Like that one word. There's so much judgment. It just contains a whole attitude that just drives me crazy. So it's my long-winded way of saying is that you and I have different approaches to sex, and I think that's awesome.
Me too. Me too. You know, one of the things that keeps people small and keeps culture from progressing at a faster rate is that we want to make each other wrong so that we can feel right. And you know, this is a human problem all over the world, but we just get to see it within the gay world of people being like, I don't understand why you're into that, or you know, if you're on PrEP, that means that you want to be a slut. And you know, for many of us, the answer to that is yes, I do want to be a slut, and PrEP helps me do that safely.
Why do you think that there's so much backlash, especially initially, to it?
I think it all comes down to shame and internalized homophobia. You know, what I've observed through interviewing hundreds of people, you know, either formally or informally, I find that consistently people who are judgmental about PrEP automatically associate it with riskier behavior, which is completely backwards. Taking PrEP is itself an excellent action towards sexual health and protection. That is a huge amount of your protection. But people are so trained to think that, you know, condoms or die, that you know, they're willing to be that judgmental of other people's choices. And I find that so many people that I've interviewed, they feel like they would judge themselves if they got on PrEP and started having more sex with more partners, anonymous, whatever. That's what I see the biggest resistance to PrEP being. Speaking of, you know, people's resistance to PrEP and, you know, shame around sexuality, in your videos, there's a lot of sex that I found, and I was really enjoying that. I want to know, you know, generally, what was it like to shoot the sex scenes? You know, what were the practicalities? What were the issues that came up? But then also, how do you hide that much dick? Like
very careful editing.
Yeah.
One of my own critiques of the project is that, you know, there is the Adonis complex, you know, toxic masculinity problem in gay culture that we idolize big muscle stud dudes. And you know, I absolutely adore Leo and Rock, who are in the film. They're dear friends, and they did me a huge favor by being in it. And I feel bad for not. I mean, there's a lot of diversity in the film. I feel bad that there is not more diversity in the film. But at the end of the day, you know, my inner marketing voice says sex sells. And like, this is the point. This video is meant for a very specific contemporary point in gay culture. What I feel like will get the message out to as many people as possible is to dangle a little candy at the beginning of the video.
I thought your video was extraordinarily diverse compared to what we usually see.
Casting was incredibly difficult. First, I was surprised, first of all, that I got a lot of responses, but then, you know, as I described the project in detail, all of the minority folks dropped out. And then the only people that showed up to auditions were basically white bears. Bless their hearts. Which is a community that I'm speaking to and I wanted to include in the film, but I didn't want to have the entire film be a white bear film. So, you know, I went to Craigslist. I did 1,000 posts on Facebook, and on Facebook, I have a list of all my gay friends. And I just started working through basically from top to bottom. Do you want to be in my movie? Do you know anyone that wants to be in my movie? And eventually, friend in the Bay Area, and he edits porn, and he put me in touch with Leo Forte, the Latin porn star who's in the movie. And being a porn star, he had no problems with doing gay sex scenes that are going to be blasted out onto every social media channel that will have me. And it was also, you know, it was a high priority for me that that we have a minority cast, because the people who are most affected by the HIV epidemic are Black and Latin and young men of color.
Well, and the women too.
Yeah, there are a lot of topics that I wish that I could cover. That certain topics, like my big regret is that I didn't have an opportunity to address PrEP in the trans community. Part of that is just my own personal access to the trans community, and part of that is just like a finite resources thing. If the series takes off and we get like 1 million people watching it and willing to take it further, I would love to make more episodes. Just to rewind for a second and let me wrap up the sex scene story. I'm the guy who's always like pushing the guy I'm dating to be more okay with holding hands in public, and I've got a rainbow flag on my car, and I'm the most out person you could possibly meet. But I think it speaks to the level of how deep that internalized shame runs, that when I was talking to straight people about the project, I still had a moment of hesitation and a moment of anxiety about like saying that it's a gay project. So we wanted to shoot them with the actors actually naked, so that you can actually, it looks like realistic sex. The cinematographer is one of my colleagues who we've both worked on. He's a straight married guy with kids, and I got incredibly nervous about asking him if he was willing to shoot the sex scene with the guys naked, because that involves being in a room with guys pretending to fuck with their dicks flapping around. Yeah. We actually waited till like day of to kind of finalize the plan that we were actually going to shoot it with them naked. And John, the cinematographer, suggested it. Like, oh, why don't we have them be actually naked? I'm like, great, you brought it up. I don't have to bring it up.
Professional.
Yeah, very professional. I mean, like it made me very conscious of a lot of how much shame even I, who considers myself completely shameless, still have. That I was so anxious about talking about gay sex to straight people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since the project is so personal to your story, has it been hard to talk about family or friends, or expose yourself to criticism by publishing this way?
When my journalism on the topic first started coming out in 2014, I would read the comments, and the comments were overwhelmingly supportive. It's great. I didn't realize that in the comment section, people jumped to your defense of something. I thought that people were just there to be like, her hair's stupid. Or whatever. No, I've prepared for trolls. I was prepared for, family in particular to be hesitant, but it's not their career. It's not their lives. So, my long-suffering mother thinks that any day now I'm going to get fired, as a college professor because I wrote about blowjobs. Like, Mom, that's not how academia works. Are you doing something that hasn't been done before with the PrEP project? Because I haven't seen any sort of web series or things like that looks anything like what you're doing.
There are a bunch of videos about it. There was a Vice documentary that was pretty good. There was a Al Jazeera documentary that was pretty good. But most of the campaigns around it, so the documentary angle covered it like this is a very serious topic, which it is. But it's also sex, and sex should be fun. Most of the campaigns, there's been a few exceptions. Like there was a Australian campaign that says, I don't know if you've seen this poster that says, "You can fuck raw." That's the most blunt I've ever seen anyone be.
The Australians are being incredibly sex positive and explicit about this. There's a group, a grassroots group in Australia that had, instead of a fundraiser, they had a fuck raiser in order to raise the money to start like a grassroots business of getting PrEP to the people who need it. They had an orgy with a cover to get in, and they used that to fund PrEP access. This is brilliant.
That's awesome.
Brilliant.
My problem with the outreach so far about PrEP is that it like tiptoes around the issue because the government organizations and the health-based organizations don't want to just come out and admit that people don't like using condoms. But in a world where only 17% of gay guys use condoms, I'm like, okay, well, aren't you ignoring gay guys who aren't seeing themselves in these ads? So what I'm trying to do is speak to those guys and have them see themselves both like, you know, in the minority cast and in the sex positivity, and then in leading off the first episode with something that is shocking to hear out of a HIV prevention series, which is there are legitimate reasons why you might not like condoms.
Over and over again in my book, I try to get the message across that people haven't just abandoned condoms because of PrEP. People weren't using condoms anyway.
Case in point.
Yeah. All PrEP does is give us an incredibly effective HIV prevention tool in addition to what we already had to work with. You know, PrEP is very convenient for people, especially for people who weren't using condoms anyway.
So you talk about in the book, like you close with, you're going to save bottoming for the sequel.
Yeah, the sequel, the working title of the sequel is The Loser Whisperer, or Good Things and Why We Can't Have Them. So the sequel will be not focused on PrEP. The sequel will be focused on things like discovering that I'm codependent and like, oh, that's why my relationships fail before they start, you know, and finding the humor in that and finding the ability to grow emotionally and, you know, give myself some boundaries and also some forgiveness around having my very rocky sexual and romantic experiences in my 20s.
You've been in a situation where someone really wanted you to do it and you had to keep telling them no.
Oh yeah, I mean, I that's actually how I got raped in college. You know, and trigger warning, I get raped in chapter 2 of the PrEP Diaries. And I think that's what really has left me pretty turned off to bottoming in most situations, like certainly not with someone I've just met. Whenever someone is begging or trying to persuade me to do something I don't want to do, I tend to shut down and be like, oh, you're an abuser. Whether you know it or not, you're an abuser. You like to coerce other people so that you get your way. And I'm not playing that game with anybody. I'm too fucking old to play that game with people.
Two more big themes that I wanted to that motivated me to do this. You know, one is I think you've heard to boil down Eric's central thesis to one idea, it would be this idea that that knowledge should conquer fear in our sex lives and in how we judge other people and how we treat HIV positive people and how we treat each other. That we should always approach it with an awareness to our own fears and to deal with those fears by going out and seeking information, which is, I think, I hope to encourage. And the other thing is that it seems to me that there's this ongoing culture war. There was a group in that the whole marriage equality fight that felt that this is not even a fight we should be having, because what the gays were marching for in the 70s was not marriage. It was like, we shouldn't have to be married. We shouldn't have to fit into patriarchal, hegemonic, straight cultural institutions for you to accept us. You should just accept us being as weird as we want to be, having like all kinds of new forms of relationship, you know, being poly, being open, whatever it is. So there are kind of two groups. There's the like, okay, well, in order to get acceptance, and I think where a lot of this came from was the AIDS crisis of like, okay, well, we have to get the straight people and the people in power to like us and to be more palatable to the American public in order to get funding for AIDS research, versus the people who want to, you know, demolish all the shame around sex. As we start to work towards towards the end, hopefully, of the AIDS crisis, we're starting to see a little bit of that original thought come back by making this, like, you know, crazy film about sex. I'm kind of casting my vote on the side of like, I don't want to make myself like you in order for you to respect me.
I hear that. You know, I try not to participate whenever possible in dialogues in which people are making each other right or wrong. So I'm definitely with you on this mission that queer people should be accepted as we are without having to look like straight people. Um, I say I'm not an orgy guy, I'm not a bathhouse guy. So it's important to me not to judge people who do really enjoy those sort of spaces and those sort of activities, because just because it's something that I feel uncomfortable participating in, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. And so many people I interviewed love group sex, anonymous sex, etc. So, it was very humanizing. I'm hoping that this book will help people make calm, comfortable, confident decisions about their sexual health. That's the greatest possible effect that my work, in journalism and nonfiction can have, is giving people hope and giving people the confidence to just make these decisions. Even if that decision is, I read that book and I don't think PrEP is for me after all. Great. But now you feel informed and you feel comfortable about that.
I still meet people who've never heard of PrEP. And I still meet people who
All the time.
might have heard of it, but don't know all the details, don't know how to get on and all that stuff. So one, it was important to me to have set the benchmark of like, okay, the film has to, at a very basic level, just quickly and concisely get the information across. And from a cultural perspective, I'm hoping to contribute to the sex positive culture and the HIV positive culture and kink positive culture. It was a really big deal for me to have a scene where a positive guy explains what it means to be undetectable in public and in daylight. In fact, all of the sex scenes, okay, except for one, all the sex scenes in the movie take place in daylight. Like, this is not something to be ashamed of. This is not something we're going to talk about in the back alley. This is we're going to put it right out. And
sorry, I was going to say, who doesn't love a good daylight fuck?
Exactly. In my dream of dreams, I would love to well, first of all, get it seen by as many people as possible. So I'm kind of skipping the usual festival circuit filmmaker route, but I would love to make more episodes, cover the topics I didn't cover, and to tour with the film, to take it to places where there's less community knowledge about PrEP. That would be awesome.
Do you want to take PrEP together on camera?
I'd love to.
Yay!
I've got it in my weekly pill minder box here.
Awesome. I have my Attack of the Killer Truvada.
I've been storing all my Truvada bottles because I'm gonna make a costume that has a Truvada bandolier.
Nice.
Shall we do it?
Yep. Yumi and Wonder Woman. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. That's the taste of prevention, my friend. So people can pre-order if they want to support small LGBT businesses. They can order direct from the publisher, Lethe, and you can also order it from Amazon or the major booksellers. But yeah, it's ready to go. It's already shipping. The people who pre-ordered will be getting their books any day now, before the end of the month, and then Amazon will start shipping in May. But if you want to get your hot little hands on it immediately, you can order direct from the publisher. Lethe Press, LETHEPRESS. You can also go directly to my website, which is evanjpeterson.com.
And if you want to subscribe to videos on our YouTube channel for the PrEP Project, it is www.theprepproject.tv, and there's a YouTube subscribe link at the top.
You were talking about the choose your own adventure with the penis stats. Is that?
That is on our Facebook page, which is fb.com/theprepproject.
Wonderful. Well, Chris, thank you so much for doing this video with me.
This has been super fun. All right, take care.
All right, peace out.